to the entertainment Talking Sports.
What is going on, Hoops fans? Back at it with another New York Knicks video, as huge news came out yesterday for the New York Knicks when the Knicks went out there and they traded to acquire Derrick Rose. And in this video, I'm going to give my opinion on the trade. I'm also going to give my opinion on the overall roster and how it may potentially impact some player development and where I think Rose's minutes may go. I'm also going to touch on some of the other players in this roster that were initially implicated in this trade, and then word came out that the New York Knicks didn't want to ship them off to Detroit. I'll give some of the reasoning as to why that may be in this video. But in the end, the New York Knicks ended up bringing back Derrick Rose. Rose, of course, was here about 4 years ago. I'm going to go over all the numbers. He averaged about 18 points a game. He had the sexual allegations, if you remember that. And then, the Knicks did not bring him back. And it didn't really work out here. He's going to be 32 years. Of course, if you go all the way back to 2011, he won the MVP. And who was his coach then? Tom Thibodeau. Derrick Rose was the best player on the planet under Tom Thibodeau. Now, will he duplicate that? Absolutely not. And word has come out that he may very well not even be in the starting lineup. He has not really been a starter in the NBA over the last 3 years. He's kind of transitioned his game into being a sixth man. This year, he's seen his minutes reduced just a bit. He's averaging about 22 minutes a game. The previous 2 years, he was averaging about 26 and 27. If you go back 3 years ago with Detroit, he was actually very efficient. I think he shot 49% from the field, and he averaged over 18 points a game, but we'll get into all the numbers. He's still a good player. Do I think he's going to be a dramatic difference maker? No. The only thing I worry about from this trade is how it could potentially impact some of the younger players. Now, do I think that Quickly will lose his minutes? In the end, I'm going to lean no. I think Elfrid Payton will remain in the starting lineup. I think some of his minutes will probably be reduced. I think Austin Rivers may be on the way out in terms of having a role from within this rotation. I've also read some articles that people feel like he could be a better pairing with Obi Toppin. But rest assured, I will also touch on Kevin Knox, and I will touch on Frank Ntilikina and why they may have not been implicated, may have not been involved in this trade. Could it be for another potential trade? Or maybe do the New York Knicks have them in the future plans? Of course, both of them former first-round picks. No attachments to the guys that are at the top right now with the New York Knicks and have fallen out of favor with Thibodeau, which I'm a little bit surprised with Frank Ntilikina, being that he's a defensive-minded basketball player. A lot of people feel like he could turn into a defensive stud. Thibodeau's known for defense. Hasn't really played him much this year. And you would figure bringing in a guy like Derrick Rose, that would only limit his minutes even more, in which he's gotten 0. I know he's been banged up. Kevin Knox actually got up to an efficient start from behind the three-point line to start this year, but he, just like Ntilikina, is not getting in the games, which is why a lot of Knicks fans thought they could very well be shipped out of here. But in the end, the New York Knicks only traded away Dennis Smith Jr., a guy that they acquired in the Kristaps Porzingis trade, who's been a complete bust, whether it was with the Mavericks, whether it was with the New York Knicks, and a second-round pick. So they didn't give up much to bring in Derrick Rose, but let's go over the exact trade. This from Adrian Wojnarowski. Detroit has agreed to trade guard Derrick Rose to the New York Knicks for Dennis Smith Jr. and a 2021 second-round pick via Charlotte. Now, for those of you that do not know, a lot of you guys are probably NFL fans. A second-round pick in the NBA is peanuts. I mean, you're talking bottom of the barrel. A lot of second-round prospects don't even make the roster, and if they do, a lot of times they don't even stick on the roster. I'm not telling you that you may not find diamonds in the rough. Mitchell Robinson, a player that we like, was a former second-round pick. Of course, he dropped due to things that happened from him not playing college basketball. But regardless, yes, you can find a diamond in the rough, but a second-round pick is not much. And in the end, I think the New York Knicks, if they wanted to, could easily get this pick back by trading away some of the players that I said earlier. The question is, are they holding on to players like Frank Ntilikina and Kevin Knox to further develop them, or potentially involve them in a trade to try to acquire a big fish, right? You hear names like Zach LaVine. You hear names like Bradley Beal, and maybe they're trying to hold on to him for that. Or maybe if they plan on trading him, they're holding on to them to try to get back that second-round pick that they just gave up. And we're going to have to wait and see how the rest of the season plays out. Right now, I think the prudent approach for the New York Knicks is not to give up serious draft capital, which is what I'm happy about in this trade. It seemed like as it was getting closer and closer that the New York Knicks were going to acquire Derrick Rose. I did not want them to give away a first-round pick because we need those picks for the future of this basketball team. So I was glad that did not happen. In terms of what Derrick Rose had to say about his second stint with the New York Knicks, he said just this. Other Hoopers always used to tell me that if I ever had the chance to go play in the Mecca, go for it. I'm getting a second chance, Rose wrote. Got to make this one count, but I'm built for it. And we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. Rose, of course, playing for a future contract. He's 32 years old. He's got a perfect pairing here with Thibodeau. One thing I also want to talk about with Derrick Rose that I haven't seen a ton of people talk about, he could very well help the development of some of these younger players, and it may very well be why the New York Knicks brought him in. Who's better than anybody that's ever played in the Tom Thibodeau system than him? This is a guy that won the MVP award back in 2011. He's very familiar with what they run, and maybe the New York Knicks value that and feel like he could get the most out of a player like Immanuel Quickleys and help further develop him in his rookie season. So I think that's something else that has to be taken into account. In terms of his statistics, like I said, he's 32 years old this year. You've really seen the minutes diminish. Of course, early on in his career, he was a three-time All-Star back-to-back-to-back in the 09-10, 10-11, and 11-12 season. I believe he won his MVP in 2010-11, went down with the injury after just 39 games in his third season. In 2011, though, I mean, you look at the numbers, they were off the charts. But you've started to see him, obviously not be the same player since he's recovered from that injury. He was still a starter all the way up until his time with the New York Knicks in 2016 and 17, in which he started 64 games and was still a pretty efficient player for the New York Knicks. He's not going to be a great distributor of the basketball, but he's definitely a guy that could come off the bench and give you good minutes. He's a guy that could score still. There's no doubt about it. 2019 and 20, as recently as last year in 50 games, he shot 49% from the field, as you see there. And the year before that, in 51 games, coming off the bench for most of them, he shot 48% from the field while shooting 37% from downtown, which was a career high. Do I think he'll be able to do that? No, but even if he could give you 34, 35%, which is what I think we're hoping for here, that would be good. But what Rose's strength has always been is creating contact, getting into the paint. You haven't seen him go to the line nearly as much as he once did, since that injury. But he's always been a guy with a good, quick first step that could get into the paint and get easy buckets. He's not going to be really a guy that I think will really help the three-point shot, which is the biggest weakness for the New York Knicks on the offensive side of the court. Like I said, from what I've heard, he may very well not be starting with the Knicks, which I don't mind. He could have a bench role. But what the challenge is going to be now for Tom Thibodeau is finding a way to implement him into the lineup while still not damaging the minutes of the players that need to develop on this basketball team. And there's minutes to go around. You could cut into the minutes of a guy like Austin Rivers. You could cut into the minutes of a guy like Burks. And I'm sure that is what will happen. Quickly, the last couple of games, a lot of New York Knicks fans have been upset. He only played 13 minutes a couple of games ago. I think last game he played maybe 15, 16 minutes. I, as a Knicks fan, would like to see him get 20 minutes if possible. And he's definitely a guy that's capable of playing off the ball. His strength is his shooting. You haven't really seen the New York Knicks do that with him and Elfrid Payton. Rose is definitely a guy capable of playing off the ball, though. I could see him easily transitioning with Payton. I think you're going to have to see both of these guys play together, though, for Quickly to get his minutes. And we're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out. Do I think Derrick Rose is going to put us over the top in terms of making the playoffs? I mean, it's possible, but we don't know if there's going to be more trades that come from this. Like I said, the rumors were, as recently as a week or two ago, actually a day or two ago, that Kevin Kno or Frank Ntilikina could very well be involved in this trade for Derrick Rose. The Knicks decided not to do that. As a matter of fact, from what I read, they said that they will not. They refused to trade Kevin Kno in this deal. And a lot of Knicks fans thought for sure he was out here, and he still may be. He has not been able to get on the basketball court. The only thing that makes logical sense to me is that Thibodeau doesn't feel like he plays good defense, and he doesn't think that he's a guy that he wants in the future of this team, because he's still 21 years old, and you would think that Thibodeau would want to give him some kind of minutes to be out there on the basketball court. You're seeing guys like Taj Gibson, as much as I like him, and he's a former Thibodeau guy, get some minutes. Knox, in my opinion, is probably going to be on his way out here at some point in time this season. The question will be, will it be for a guy that will help this team this year, or will it potentially be for future draft picks? And that's what the New York Knicks will have to decide. And maybe they're keeping these assets that they feel could garner some attention from a team that may be looking to ship away Bradley Beal or Levine. And I'm sure that's what some New York Knicks fans are hoping for. We definitely could use a spark. I, for one, am still of the mindset of let's not try to rush the process. As a Knicks fan, I've seen this happen way too often where the Knicks try to take some shortcuts. If the right deal is there, you always listen. And I think that's why they probably ultimately decided to keep both Frank and Knox. Do I think either one of them look like they have much of a future with the New York Knicks? Unfortunately, no. When you're young and you're not getting minutes, that says a lot about how they feel about you as a basketball player. And the fact that they brought in Derrick Rose that will only, further complicate things in that backcourt, it doesn't sit well with the likes of Frank Ntilikina. But we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. Derrick Rose, for now, though, is a New York Knick, and I do think he'll help this basketball team. I expect him to get increased minutes probably by Friday. We'll see if he plays at all tomorrow, which I'll be calling the game, so come on by for that. If he does, I don't think he's going to get a ton of minutes. I think by Friday, you'll start to get a better idea of how the New York Knicks are going to distribute some of the minutes in the backcourt. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.